Yes, as he mentioned, I direct the Center for Creative Writing and Oral Culture at the University of Manitoba, and it's a research center that we focus on creative writing and on storytelling as art forms and as practices that are worthy of study as well. So we study it and we also practice it. And myself, I'm a creative writer mostly. I grew up in a family of great storytellers, and my father was a wonderful storyteller. But I've never been quite as good at storytelling as he was, so I just stick to the writing most of the time. But when I was growing up, I was so taken with my father's storytelling abilities, in fact, that I wanted to write all of his stories down. And even before I learned how to read and write, I just was scribbling in a notebook, pretending that I was writing his stories down. But one of the things that my father also, he had a great influence on me and on my siblings as well. He was also a lawyer in his day job, and so he was a storyteller by night and a lawyer in the daytime. And when it came time for me, when I was finishing high school, to decide where I would go in my career, I thought probably would be an interesting idea to follow my father's footsteps and to become a lawyer. I neglected to think about the fact that my personality was very different from my father's, and I was a terrible arguer. Whereas he was very good at arguing. And so it took me a while to discover that I was not suited for that life at all, and it just didn't fit my personality. But in the process of going through my university, I realized that what I really wanted to do, and what I had always really wanted to do, was to write down stories, to tell stories of other people and to tell my own stories and bring them out to the world in a way that could maybe change people's perspectives on things. And so eventually I gave up on the idea of being a lawyer, and I made that choice to try the life of an artist, of a writer. And it was a risky kind of choice in a way. It was a scary kind of choice, but looking back now, I know it was exactly the right choice for me. And it was a choice that allowed me to really feel productive and feel creative and feel happy in my life, that I am doing something that's really well suited to my temperament and my skills. And I really feel that it's given me the opportunity to make a difference maybe in some other people's lives as well, people who've read my books and seen my films. So I've started here with this slide saying creative writing a career, and I think that is a question that pops into the minds of probably parents often if someone were to say, Mom and Dad, I'm interested in becoming a writer. Someone might say, yeah, okay, that's fine. You can do that in your spare time, and you can enjoy that, but it can't be a career. But I think, certainly not for everyone, but I think definitely there's a lot of possibilities to make a career out of creative writing or out of filmmaking or out of even storytelling. So that's what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today, is to share this idea, this maybe unheard of idea that you can actually have a career in a creative, artistic field, and that it may require you to just sort of analyze your own personality and your own skills and see if this is something you really want to try out. But I think it's something that we should really consider and think about, that there are alternative paths that we can take in our lives, in our careers. And so this is an image that sort of struck me as what choosing to be a writer was sort of like for me. It was like I had to. There wasn't a path already set out. I had to sort of make it up as it went along. Whereas if I had decided to follow and go into a profession like law, it was very clear. You go to school for this number of years, you finish, you do your articling, you get a job in a law firm. That's pretty clear. Whereas with something like writing or filmmaking or even storytelling, you have to sort of invent the road as you go along. And so some people find that a bit stressful. Others find it really empowering because you get to be in control. You make the decisions of where your career is going to unfold and how you're going to take advantage of opportunities as time goes on. So how many of you here have done some creative writing? Okay, quite a few, yes. How about filmmaking? Has anyone made any films? Started to? Okay, great. How many storytellers have we got in the audience? Okay, that's great. So I think, yeah, a lot of us really find these activities incredibly enriching, empowering. They give us a sense that we can share what we what our own experience of the world is with others. And I think that's really, when you write something and you show it to someone else, or when you make a film and you show it to someone else, there's a great sense for me of satisfaction that, I've shared something about my vision of the world, and I want to see what that person thinks of that now. So I think if you've done that in class, if you've done it in a workshop, and you feel the satisfaction and you think that you have more to contribute and you have a real passion for that, realize that you can, it doesn't just have to be a sideline in your life. It can be something that you can really devote yourself to if you're passionate about it. Now, in terms of thinking about writing as a career, or filmmaking, or even storytelling, and there are some storytellers who have that as their profession, as a career. There are some preconceptions about what kind of life a writer has, for example. And so I've just chosen a couple of images that sort of, to me, encapsulate what people tend to think about, a kind of stereotype, I guess, that they think about for the writer. On the one hand, on your left there, the idea of the writer being in a garret, that is a small enclosed space, this time locked up with a typewriter, pretty old-fashioned technology. This notion of having to sequester yourself away and often live in poverty and not have any sort of contact with the outside world. That's one stereotype of being a writer. The other side is the exact opposite. You're right. Someone who is incredibly famous, incredibly wealthy, and has a huge impact on global culture. And is someone, and there are not very many writers who are recognizable by their faces, but certainly J.K. Rowling is one of those. So I think people tend to think that as a writer, you're either one of those extremes or the other. You're either completely locked by yourself in a room and have no contact with the outside world, or you're a celebrity and you're wealthy and famous. I guess the actual reality of it is usually somewhere in between those two. And I think, sometimes I think people maybe have a little bit unrealistic expectations that they might become the next J.K. Rowling, but of course, she had to have that belief in herself when she started. She didn't know she was going to become as popular and famous as she did. So I think you have to basically trust in your own vision and see, if you have a real passionate belief that you have a story that you want to tell, however you tell that, through writing or film or as a story, then I think that's the most important thing. And what develops out of that is very hard to predict. But I think often writers, even, I know many writers who are very accomplished but are not famous like J.K. Rowling. But I think they're still very satisfied with their careers, that they've been able to make a career out of expressing their views of the world. Right? So sometimes you can't really have full control over whether you're going to be a bestseller or not, but you can still have control over whether you devote yourself to writing or creating the thing that you really want to create. And I had mentioned that storytellers also can have a career, can be professionals. And I just wanted to point out some storytellers that I've had here at my Creative Writing Center. This closest to me here on the right, Roberta Kennedy is a Haida storyteller from Haida Gwaii on the west coast of Canada. And in the middle, Ignatius Mabasa is a storyteller from Zimbabwe who came to our center for 6 months. And then on the lower left is Pat Ryan, who's from Ireland. And all of these three are professional storytellers. This is how they make their living. And it involves a lot of travel because they have to go to various venues all over the world to tell their stories. And they have a wonderful wealth of experience of meeting new people, seeing different cultures. So it's a really amazing life that they have. It's also, there are some downsides in that they have to travel an awful lot. So sometimes they miss their homes. But anyway, this is just to let you know that it is possible to be a professional storyteller as well. So just thinking about some of the questions, things I've already talked about here a little bit, a notion of what you do for your living. And we tend to think about a job as something that you basically do to get enough money to do the things you really want to do. So I just wanted to look at this word vocation and a very closely related word, avocation. And I think it's interesting for me as a writer and as an English professor, thinking about how definitions are, we sometimes see that they circle back and connect to each other. These two words are really supposed to be the opposite of each other in a way. Vocation, that first definition, a particular occupation, business, or profession, right? Then you look at avocation, that's listed, and the first definition is that's something in addition to your vocation, right? Especially done for pleasure or a hobby, something you do on your spare time. But if you notice the second definitions of both of these terms, avocation, the second definition is a person's regular occupation, calling, or vocation. And if you look at just the second part of the one on vocation, just after the semicolon there, calling. These two words contain their opposite within the definitions. And I think that's really interesting, because I think when we really think about it, ideally your vocation, the thing that you do to make your living, should be connected in some way to the thing that you love to do. And so I think in a way, just in the way our language is actually constructed, these two concepts are very closely connected. And I think that's telling us something, that what we do should be something that we enjoy doing as well, right? Not just doing it to put food on the table necessarily, though that's obviously important as well. So for me, what I'm interested in is I guess putting the A back in vocation. That is, bringing that notion of the thing you love to do, the thing you might want to do in your spare time, and seeing if you can incorporate that into your day-to-day job, if you want to call it that. And I think the thing is, if you're considering a career choice like creative writing or filmmaking or storytelling, there are, as I mentioned a little bit before, there are some risks to that. There's a bit of a fear factor involved because it's not a straightforward path, right? So this is what I say about the risks, it being an uncertain path. You can't just say, okay, I know I will work here for a certain number of years and I'll get promoted and then I'll have a different job description, things like that. You're basically having to create your job description as your career moves along. But a lot of people find that really empowering as well. It means that you are your own boss. So I think certainly of the artists that I know, the job satisfaction is extremely high. Everyone that I know who is a writer, they may be sometimes discouraged if they get a bad review or something like that, but they can't imagine not doing the job that they're doing because they really feel it's empowering them, it's showing them, it's allowing them to as I said, share their vision with other people. So I think being your own boss and having your own view of things and being able to share with others is really important for people who are in this field. Just want to step back and take a couple of, I guess, reality checks, if you want to call it that, for people who are interested in writing. In Canada, this is, I think, fairly representative of most English-speaking countries, though. It doesn't pay very well. So it's not usually the case that you're going to make a lot of money, although, of course, there are exceptions like J.K. Rowling. So a book that's a bestseller in Canada, the author would make about $16,000 from that book, which sounds okay, but when you consider that it maybe takes 3 or 4 years to write that book, it's not a very good yearly wage, let alone an hourly wage. And of course, most books are not bestsellers either. So the amount of money that an author makes from their book is not going to be significant amount of money in terms of fame and fortune, at least unless they strike it lucky, which does happen, of course. Screenwriters do make a little bit more money, and sometimes they make a lot more money, but it's also very high risk because the screenwriter, the way the pay structure works with screenwriting is that usually they'll pay you a little bit to work on the script, a very small amount of money, but it's only when the script is actually made into a movie that then you get paid, and you can get paid a lot of money then. But sometimes you can work on a script for years and years and years before it finally gets made into a movie. At that point, you may get a big payout and make $100,000 or $200,000. But it's a risk-reward kind of lifestyle. Storytellers generally do make even less than writers and filmmakers. But again, I think a lot of these artists end up working in a bunch of different fields in order to put together an income using their creative skills. So a lot of, as I showed you our pictures of the storytellers a couple of slides back, those storytellers also make part of their living as writers too, and they do other things as well. And I just wanted to point out some of the things that artists often do as a way of creating that career, of making that, unfolding that road for themselves, thinking about that first slide that I showed you. And if you can really think about an artist in a way as a kind of entrepreneur, as someone who has their own little business as an artist, right? And that they are their own boss. They have to make their own choices as to what kind of work they're going to take on, and this allows them to make, you know, to find new opportunities. It allows them to, you know, decide what to prioritize in their careers. So here, just wanted to give you a list of some of the things that writers often do to create a full-fledged kind of career. So the writing part of it's pretty obvious, but writers generally aren't just writing books. They're often writing a lot of other things as well. So writing for magazines, which actually generally pays better on a word-by-word basis than writing books does. Writing film scripts, sometimes, you know, someone who's dedicated as a novelist or a fiction writer will write a film script in order to make a little bit of extra money. Website copy, there's a lot of opportunity there. And then another few things that they do often is editing. And this is something that I think people don't really think about very much, but as you become skilled as a writer, you also learn how to edit other people's work, inevitably, by just learning how to edit your own work. And there's a real interest among publishers in paying people fairly good money to do this. So this is what a lot of writers will do to supplement their incomes. And it's using their skills that they've already gained as artists. So this is something that I've done a fair bit throughout my career. And then, of course, teaching and mentoring is also another really important thing. This is something that I've done as well. Providing that guidance for younger artists who are starting out. And this is something that a lot of writers and storytellers in particular make some of their income from doing. So again, just bringing together different elements of your skills to create a career that can pay the bills and also allow you to do the creative work that you want to do. So finally, I've got other income that's going to come in from performing and lecturing and broadcasting, such as, you know, being on the radio or on television. So all of those things generally sort of go into the making of a career of an artist or a filmmaker or a storyteller. So it's a sort of multifaceted kind of career, really. And then if you end up having a massive bestseller like J.K. Rowling, then you can decide, okay, I don't want to do the editing anymore. I don't want to do the other things anymore. I can just do my writing. But very often, people really enjoy these other aspects of the career and don't really want to give them up, even if they do make enough money at their writing. So I also just wanted to point out some of the creative opportunities that are here in Winnipeg. Winnipeg is a wonderful place to be an artist. Partly because we have really good support in terms of our grants that we have for artists. Still not a huge amount of money, but enough to really get someone started on a project. And if you'll notice that I've got this handout. For those of you who don't have it, I can be sure you get it at the end here. In the handout that I've given you, there's a list of a lot of resources for doing creative work. And many of them are focused here in Manitoba. So the last two there, the Manitoba Arts Council and the Winnipeg Arts Council, are two organizations that can provide funding for writers and filmmakers and storytellers to create their art. So this is a really great way of starting a project. Usually you have to have some publication already or some film work that's been accepted at festivals and that kind of thing. But we have really good support for professionalizing as artists here. And as I mentioned at the top of the slide there's a lot of different magazines and publishers, newspapers, websites that are based here, and they're all in need of writing. Even when we just look at the newspapers, we can see sometimes they're in need of better writing than what's being done right now. So having that skill is really in demand. So that's something that writers can really make use of as a supplement also to their artistic side of their work. The film industry is also extremely active here, and there's all kinds of different opportunities in that industry. You usually have to start on the ground floor, working as an assistant of some kind, but there's a lot of room to create more opportunity and to move up in some of these production companies, or to create your own company and make the kind of films that you want to make. And we also, as I mentioned, our arts organizations like the Manitoba Writers Guild and Video Pool and the Winnipeg Film Group. These are all also mentioned here on your handout. These organizations are also great in terms of their opportunities that they provide for artists here. So I'll maybe I'll maybe move on to the next slide, actually, because this is sort of deals with some of the things that they offer. So if you're interested in following this career path, there's a lot of different ways that you can learn how to be a better artist. Now, some people will dispute this and say, you know, an artist, you can't teach that. You're either a genius or you're not. From my own experience as a teacher of creative writing, I really don't agree with that. I really think that there are a lot of skills involved in creating an artwork. Having the idea is one thing, but learning how to make it a reality is another very different thing. And I think you can learn a lot from taking courses either at the university level or at the college level, or just more intensive and shorter courses that are focused on creative writing or storytelling or filmmaking. So I just wanted to list a few of the ones here that I think are available relatively close by here, either right in Winnipeg or else in Western Canada, that are just excellent resources that you can, depending on how much time or investment you want to put into it, you can either do a degree in creative writing, or you could do a shorter, intense kind of focus on creative writing. So at the University of Manitoba, the University of Winnipeg, and at Canadian Mennonite University, they have creative writing courses. The U of M and U of W both have creative writing minor in their English department, so you could have that as a minor for your entire 4-year degree, if you like. And also going further along, you can do a master's degree in creative writing. And so what you would do there is you actually create a book-length work of fiction or poetry as your thesis. And then often these works get published later. Certainly I know a number of ours at the U of M have been published in recent years. So that's really, taking that level of dedication, going through an undergraduate degree and then a graduate degree to become a professional writer. And so those programs are available there at U of M, but also at a number of other universities that have MFA programs too. So this is just something to think about for the future if you're interested in following this up. UBC has a really fine MFA program. University of Toronto has one as well. University of Saskatchewan. There are a number of others in Canada that do allow you to have that intense focus for 2 or 3 years on your creative writing project. But as I mentioned, there are also much briefer ones that are not for degrees, but are for really just for the kind of knowledge that you can gather and the kind of people that you can meet at these courses. So these are all, the links are all on this page that I've handed out to you. The Banff Center has fantastic programming that usually lasts from 1 week to 5 weeks. And what you do if you go, you have to apply, and it's competitive to apply. But if you get into the program, you go and you work intensively with a mentor and with a group of other writers who are, sort of at your stage in development. And it's wonderful. It's just a great way to get to know other people who are working on something similar to what you're doing. So I think socially it's really great, but also just the skills that you can learn are just fantastic. I think that's been incredibly useful for me, the programs at the Banff Center, and also the Sage Hill Writing Experience, which is a similar kind of program that's in Saskatchewan in the Qu'Appelle Valley, just north of Regina. And those programs are just, I guess, 10 days long. They don't have the longer ones. Banff also has some where it's a residential program for 2 weeks, and then you have an online component for another 10 months after that. So you actually work for almost an entire year on your project with the benefit of the mentor. So finally, other courses that we have are usually 1 or 2 day workshops or master classes at the Writers Guild, and these are excellent. I've been to a number of these. The Winnipeg Film Group also, and Video Pool. And some of the Video Pool and Winnipeg Film Groups will have ones that are up to a week or 2 in length. They're very focused and really excellent at giving you the skills that you want to create your work. So those are some of the resources that you can take advantage of to put together the skills that you want to have if you want to have a career in creative writing or in storytelling or filmmaking. So finally, I want to leave some time for you to ask questions here. But just as I guess a final sort of way of wrapping up, I just wanted to I guess remind you in a sense that if this kind of career path is a path that is an ongoing, changing kind of path, as I mentioned earlier, if you decide to follow this up, it's not you make a decision to become a certain profession and then that's over. as a writer or as a storyteller or a filmmaker, you're always having to make other choices as to what kind of work you'll do, and you have to sort of think about what's most important to you at that particular time. So I think that can be really a good thing if you enjoy having control over your career, but also some people might find that a bit daunting to not know where they're going to be at in 2 or 3 or 5 years' time. So finally, I just wanted to, I was thinking back at what I would have said to myself if I was in your stage of life, and thinking back to at that time when I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer, and realizing only a few years later that that was a very, very big mistake on my part. I would just say, yeah, don't be afraid to try something unusual as a career path. If it's something that you're passionate about, if it's something you really want to do, I think it's really worth thinking about the possibility and recognizing that it is possible to have a career doing something of a sort of unusual nature, like creative writing or storytelling or filmmaking. And also to recognize that to make a choice like that isn't an all or nothing choice. It doesn't mean that you cut off all other possibilities in your career life at all. You can try it out without giving up other opportunities as well. And I think, again, as I talked about the sort of ongoing nature of the career development in this field, this has happened to me as well, that I didn't realize when I started out wanting to be a writer that I would end up also being a teacher. But it actually has ended up working out very well for me, because as it turned out, I wanted to just write, and I thought, okay, I don't want to do anything else, I'll just focus on my writing. But as it turned out, I got a bit stir crazy, staying in the house for 10 hours a day trying to finish my books. And so I actually really enjoy going out to teach and interact with people 2 or 3 days a week now, and then I still have my time for my writing. So that's really been something that was a surprise to me. But it was, because this career is a very flexible one, it was something that I could really, fairly easily integrate into my career path. So finally, one other thing I would tell myself now, I know I probably wouldn't have wanted to listen at this point in my career, but if you do decide on a career like this, or if you start out on this path, one thing to think about is have a retirement plan, because artists don't generally pay into any pensions. And so I know a number of my friends are getting close to retirement age and realizing, who are artists, and realizing they wish they had started paying in to their RSPs or to make some other retirement plan earlier, because having that freelance life that they've had didn't allow them or didn't really encourage them to make those kind of savings that they should have done earlier. So I think that's something that I would have told myself as well earlier on. So finally, just to think about what, to me, are the rewards of a career in writing or in creative, in storytelling or in filmmaking. For me, these are some of the books that I've written and edited, and one of my films there as well. And to have those as a kind of record of my creative involvement, sometimes with other people that I was collaborating with, or sometimes on my own story that I was telling, there's a great satisfaction to know that I've been able to create those works. And it's also a wonderful feeling to get a letter or an email from someone who says, hey, I saw your film and I thought that really made me think about something, or I read your book and it really reminded me of something that happened to me. I really treasure that, to get those responses and feedback from other readers and viewers out there, and sometimes they're people from places you would never been, or sometimes you really get a different perspective on your own story, even by hearing from other people's perspectives on it. So those are some of the things I wanted to just outline for you as possibilities for a career in these creative